Dr. LaValle.
Always great to see you guys. Don't get to see you enough. Before I talk about probiotics, just one statement. Man, Kyolic is unbelievable. It's amazing the studies and that you're continuing to validate, and now from multiple sources. I mean, it's just incredible. So just hats off to the science team on their continued diligence on proving out what is, I mean, really a groundbreaking ingredient. I mean, it continues to be. So probiotics, when we've been meeting about this the last 6 months or so, and so we met 2 weeks ago, and Janice and Michael said, hey, just review all our strains, and let's talk about the science behind the strains. The probiotic market, obviously, I think you're going to see a second resurgence, because what you're going to see is everybody's going, oh no, it's not about the probiotics, it's about the prebiotics. Then they're going to realize if you just take prebiotics and you don't have healthy probiotics, you're not feeding healthy probiotics. So there's this ebb and flow of information that consumers always kind of move against to kind of create a new product. But I don't even think probiotics have even scratched the surface of their utility or what people are going to be spending their money on. So I'm gonna weigh in against what I think the consumer trend may look like in the short term, because in the long term, the probiotics are in the absolute center of both longevity and vitality, which is kind of one consumer group who's just looking to, hey, I want to age the best I can and feel the best I can. And then there's that group that says, hey, I don't feel so good, and I have an autoimmune disorder, or I have digestive stress, or I've got cancer, or I've got heart disease, and oh my gosh, there's actually evidence that probiotics actually may be really important for even heart disease, right? So there's that thought that I don't think is fully gestated, is that just how powerful the probiotic category is. I think it's getting popular, so if you look at this, it's everywhere. Everybody's talking about diversity now, right? It's like, oh, it's about diversity. And it kind of is. It's important. But it is definitely at the front. If you think about from the clinician side, so usually these kind of ideas bake in the professional segment in many instances. And so on the professional side, we really see that having consistent diversity and beneficial flora that are dictating how your immune system is responding to different stressors, it's a key concept that we work with on everything when we're working with patients. So it's in the middle of it all. So when you look at the market, obviously it's been growing. And I do think more consumers are finally understanding, oh, and this is all Fasano's work out of Harvard, right? So Alessio Fasano was probably the first guy that really started looking at the microbiome and then making a statement when it comes out of Harvard, oh, autoimmunity is principally involved and developed from when the microbiome is shifted, and now it creates an autoimmune response in your gut. Now this is Harvard School of Medicine, and so once he made that announcement, we've been talking about it. So when you think about the more integrative medicine practitioner, probably been talking about that for 20 years now. It's not something that we go, oh wow, new statement. But when a leading Harvard researcher in the Department of Gastroenterology publishes papers on it, that's when now that's only a few years ago. That is not really fully distilled down to the consumer yet, but it's starting to really get loud. So I think you're going to see some big growth there. Where's the big potential growth markets? Obviously weight loss. Now big studies attributing dysbiosis as being a component to weight loss. It's not just about what kind of flora that you're growing, but let's just think about if your flora is dying off and you're not replenishing it. When your flora dies off, what happens is it breaks apart. And when it breaks apart, it releases something called lipopolysaccharide, right? So you're seeing a lot of research on lipopolysaccharide. Flora dying, breaking apart, and now you have fragments of that flora floating around in your body. And guess what happens? It can trigger an inflammatory response on your heart tissue, in your blood vessels, in your organs. So a continual renewal, and the big one
is it a fat, Jim?
It's a protein actually. It's a lipopolysaccharide. It's a fat saccharide, right? So or the other word for that is circulating endotoxin. Circulating endotoxin, right? You remember that one, right? Lipopolysaccharide. LPS.
Why are they breaking apart?
Well, they break apart either because you have reduced blood flow to the gut, or you're killing them off. You may not realize it,
but they die off on their own.
Yeah, but they're dying off at accelerated rates because of people, if they're not exercising enough, they don't get enough blood flow to their gut. If they are don't have enough prebiotics, you got to feed them. People are on ketogenic diets. And I'm going to go through all this with you, but there's a lot of reasons why your flora doesn't, it's kind of funny. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, I got good flora. Not really. Not unless you're continually replenishing them. More than likely today, it's a lot harder. It's really popular now, right? Maybe ketogenic diet, the hottest diet.
Hottest diet right now.
It's the hottest diet going, and it's the #1 way to kill off your beneficial flora. Because you don't get any fiber in a ketogenic diet. No fiber, no prebiotics. All right? So, but the point is in weight loss, this is 2018 studies. I mean, this is like major breakthrough stuff, is that in weight loss, they've now determined that the more circulating lipopolysaccharide, the more weight gain that people achieve. And it's because that lipopolysaccharide goes to the blood-brain barrier, crosses it, and triggers inflammation systemically. So and I'm not trying to like blow you guys out of the water right away here, but this is kind of what I read up on and what I teach and how I educate docs on the importance of it. So weight loss, it's incredibly important. Obviously, in cancer, one of the biggest side effects that occurs, people don't die from cancer. Typically, they die due to malnutrition and secondary infection, and their secondary infection is usually candida. So they die due to yeast infections, and yeast infections occur because you don't have enough beneficial flora to fight off that candida. So these are big areas that is the horizon you're going to hear about over the next 24 months, and your forward-thinking independent health food retailers that are really up on things, they're already talking about this stuff. I can guarantee it. They got it. Cardiovascular disease. Some of the top cardiologists, so Mark Houston, interventional cardiologist, probably the top recognized interventional hypertensive doc with the Hypertension Institute in Nashville, huge clinic. He calls himself more of a gastroenterologist than a cardiologist. He goes, there's so much problem with the GI tract that ends up causing heart disease. Now, interesting, you guys just had a study showing that aged garlic extract improves diversity, and that may act as a prebiotic, right? Pretty cool. So, and then probably one of the biggest areas, I started writing an ebook this last, I don't know, 2 months. It's actually done, I just have to get the final edit on it. Because I did a presentation to a group of pharmacists last year on drug-induced microbiome disruption. So what that means is 25% of the drugs on the US market disrupt the microbiome. And that 25% are the biggest drugs that people are using every day. So when you start to think about, well, who needs a probiotic? Well, how many people are overweight? How many people are on drug therapy? I mean, how many people take proton pump inhibitors? They take a drug called metformin, which is an anti-diabetic drug, and of course half the population is either pre-diabetic or diabetic. So, you have really big populations to think about how you could educate, other than just, oh yeah, it's really good if you got digestive upset, right? I mean, after you want to try to be, I think, you want to go in there and start educating on, probiotics. Super important for gut health, and it's going to help your bloating and your constipation, and those are all great, and your allergies, right? You got strong stuff on immunity. But when you're doing things face to face with your retailers, you can offer that leading edge science-based information that says, there's other areas where this could be, this could help you too. So for your customers who are coming and asking these questions, we've got the evidence behind our probiotics. And it's funny, Janice and I were kidding about it, that the probiotic you can count on, we were jabbering back and forth in the room, and I kind of just blurted out, don't count your probiotics, get the probiotic you can count on. And what that means is do you have verification, RNA, DNA sequencing, making sure the historic nature of that species and type is staying intact? What kind of studies do you have on your strains? Because that's where it's at, right? It's what you rely on for Kyolic. So you got to rely on it the same way. And I know you guys do that. The near future on where it's going on the doctor side, you may see targeted, personalized probiotics. I think it's longer off than people think. I think people talk about that, and there's a couple study groups out there that are promoting that. Really, no evidence that it has any more benefit at this point. So where's the diversity at? Basically this. When you saw the Kyolic presentation, and when you look at using Chiodophilus, why is diversity important? Well, first of all, because it controls inflammatory processes in your body, and inflammatory processes in your body are what dictate your rate of aging. The more inflamed you are, the quicker you age. It's real simple. Whether it's the inside of your blood vessels or if it's the filtering devices, the glomeruli of your kidneys, the more inflamed they are, the quicker you age. So, yes, with 70% of your immune system in your gut, controlling inflammatory processes are important. That's why Fasano's work, when he published it from Harvard, was so seminal, that the gut has systemic effects to all organ systems. That's how important it is, right? The next, immune modulation. God, we don't have, one of these days we're going to talk about Magicare, because it's like one of my favorite products of all time. I love Magicare.
What are you doing tomorrow?
Getting on a plane, unfortunately.
I know.
But I can talk from the plane. No, but modulation is everything, guys. Basically what happens with your immune system is trying to kind of manage tolerance at all times. And when you're getting exposed to things and you're under stress and you're not eating right and you don't have correct nutrient composition in your diet, your immune system starts to get out of kilter, basically. And you start to make more aggressive white blood cells. So your monocytes go to a more active form that triggers inflammation and makes macrophages and triggers plaque. So one of the best ways to modulate your immune system is to maintain diversity in your gut. And of course, a lot of chronic conditions they've published now showing that there's a lack of diversity. And, well, for example, your Kyolic hypertension study, right? Obviously, at the beginning of that study, they had less diversity as a hypertensive population, and you gave Kyolic, and it improved diversity. What could you conclude from that? Hypertensive people have less diversity, right? And they show there's a lot of different disease states that show a lack of microbiota diversity. Obesity-related microbiome shifts occur. This is I hate to use the term huge, but it is huge. Big findings that as the diversity changes, you actually become more efficient. So as you go towards changing the phylum to what's called the Firmicutes family versus Bacteroidetes, when you go to that side of your microbiome, guess what happens? You start gaining weight. It's literally a trigger for storing fat. It's pretty amazing to me, right?
Okay, so sorry, Jim, so you're just saying that the less diversity you have, the more fat you're going to store?
Not just the less diversity, but as your people that alter their diversity and shift their diversity from the beneficial flora to more of the what would be called commensal pathogens, it's kind of unfriendly flora that's normally there but not so much. It's kind of like getting graffiti on a wall, right? It shows up, but you really should scrub it back off. So the more you shift away from your friendly flora and your diversity, the more you are prone to induce inflammatory response and weight gain. And that's only 80% of the US, so I don't know if you guys got much of a market.
No, not much.
It's not many people to shoot after here. Between heart disease, diabetes, and weight gain,
Right.
and we're not even talking about gut health, which is the fastest growing problem, when you look at the data on that. So gut microbiome, basically bifido to lacto, 4-to-1. Probiotic market projected up to 2024. This was, look, it's growing. I still think it's going to grow. I love it that enzymes and prebiotics are growing, because what I think that's a byproduct of is an awareness of probiotics. Because everybody learned about probiotics, I'm like, well, what else is good for my gut? We didn't know anything about prebiotics, let's start buying them. And we didn't know anything about enzymes that much, let's start buying them. So it probably slowed the category some, but I'm telling you, this category has got really long legs clinically. So what are the factors that will influence a probiotic? The way I would want you guys to look at this are, what are my sale points on who a probiotic would be an effective recommendation for? So, all the drug therapies that affect probiotics. So this is the drug-induced microbiome disruption list. So, antibiotics, oral contraceptives, chemotherapy, corticosteroids, statins, metformin, NSAIDs, PPIs, antipsychotics, even antidepressants. You don't think of antidepressants affecting your gut flora, but they do. Are there many people taking antidepressants in the U.S.? Yeah, it's about 30% of the women population in the U.S. are more prone for depression. It's pretty strong. And then opioids, right? So when you think of that, one of the first questions somebody should ask, if I'm a sales associate and I'm in a health food store, I'd probably be the leading salesperson, right? Because I'm going to ask 5 or 6 questions about, well, what's your lifestyle like? Are you on any medications? Yeah, I'm on medications. Are you on any of these medications? Oh yeah, God, I've been on steroids, I'm on statins, I'm on metformin, I take PPIs. The typical person will be on an average of 3 of these once they're over the age of 40. Okay, so remember that once you influence the flora, it's going to feed into their metabolic dysfunction, right? Because the flora is dying off, I don't have diversity, I'm triggering inflammation, and it's pretty interesting. They've been doing studies, and recently what they've been showing is even when people are on their metformin for their blood sugar, their statins for their cholesterol, and they're on their antihypertensive drug, which isn't listed here, even when they're on those 3 things, what they found is that vessel disease still continues to progress if they have a pro-inflammatory response or if they continue to have endothelial dysfunction. So, well, there's something else going on then, right? Well, where do you look at for inflammation? The gut. So it's really pretty amazing. Then if you look over here, diets that are high in sugar, and look, I love going to Expo West because how many cookies and chips can I eat in one day? I mean, it's 80% still eating sugar and eating more cookies and eating more bread and eating a new gluten-free pie crust or a gluten-free pizza crust. It's still high carb, high sugar intake. It's just now organic and gluten-free, right? So if people still have not really changed, if everybody changed their diet intake, we wouldn't have the weight epidemic issues that we have. So bottom line is we're just looking for healthier choices that still satisfy our craving patterns. That's what goes on. Bactericidal chemicals in drinking water. When you're drinking fluoridated water or chlorinated water, especially chlorinated water, chlorine kills probiotics. So if you drink unfiltered water, it is absolutely published that you are killing your flora. So if people go, I don't drink filtered water, you should be taking a probiotic every day to replenish it because you're going to be consistently killing it. Pesticides. I mean, the glyphosate story, right? About changing the diversity of microbiome, big story. I think Perlmutter's been a big advocate on his soapbox about that. But it's a big deal, and it's literally this is being made known in a big way in the media. So people that don't buy organic, people that don't participate in washing their food, that they're at risk. Alcohol. Jay, you're gonna need probiotics the rest of your life. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Can I mix it?
I compliment you. Well, no, wait, that's right, you drink grapes and they're fermented. There's probiotics in all your wine, isn't there? So anyway, no, I mean, no, honestly.
Wine with
Probiotic martinis for everyone.
There we go. Alcohol in moderation, no problem. People that drink alcohol on a daily basis, especially more than one drink, they are definitely killing off their microbiome. And I'm not here to judge any of it. I mean, this is what's been published.
Right.
Heavy metals. So basically, when you think of metals, you think of environmental intoxicants, and of course it disrupts the microbiome. It denatures enzymes in your gut, and that starts to trigger changes. Gastrointestinal pH. People drink a lot of alkaline water now. A little bit of alkaline water, okay, but if you're drinking a lot of alkaline water, it's the same thing as eating Tums,
Right.
or taking a PPI. So if all you did was drink alkaline water all the time, you're basically killing off your flora because you're changing the gastric pH of the small intestine, which then alters the pH of the large intestine. This is the mechanism of action for PPIs, right? And that's why that happens. So anybody on a PPI should be on a probiotic forever. PPIs are the #2 selling drug in the United States. All right? So, I mean, these are big targets that you can pull out and, and take this slide and make a handout if you want. I mean, Michael's got got the information. I mean, please go educate people with this stuff. It's important. Stress. Stress absolutely causes changes in the gut flora. It's proven. It's simple. Cortisol goes up. It upregulates a cytokine called interleukin 6, and interleukin 6 causes your gut to get leaky, and then the microflora to be damaged.
Is it also reduce the blood flow?
Well, cortisol will alter blood flow to the small intestine or the large intestine. That's exactly a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Because you get under stress and you release cortisol and your adrenaline goes up, your blood flow gets constricted, right? So you lose blood flow to the large intestine. Yeah, good point. Allergies, intense exercise actually damages the microbiome. So you hear of endurance runners getting runner's diarrhea. Over time, they keep running, they damage their microflora, and now they get
They
diarrhea.
really start running.
They really run. It doesn't stop them.
Is that
Really?
cortisol related, do you think, or what is that?
Well, it's cortisol related indirectly because once again, as you upregulate cortisol and you upregulate inflammatory cytokines, the gut gets more leaky. That's called the tight junctions, right, of the gut, gap. And now proteins start to get into the bloodstream and you get an allergic reaction and you start to cause inflammation in the gut. So you get transit time problems. So it's a couple steps to get there. But yeah, it's cortisol
It's a
related.
trigger, right?
Absolutely. So what does it lead to? Probably the hottest topic. How many of you, how many of you in the business 20 years or more? Raise your hand. How often 20 years ago were people talking about food allergies or intolerances? Zero, right? How often do you hear about food?
Every day. It's an everyday occurrence.
Is it that people were just more paranoid, or we created a new market by making gluten-free this new option for people? What is it? Now the fact is, food intolerance and sensitivity and ectopic dermatitis and eczema and allergy-related disorders are absolutely on the rise. There's a 12-fold increase in the last decade. So there's a huge increase, and one of the reasons is we've been under a 40-year assault of taking a lot of antibiotics, all those drug therapies that are all part of it. We've eaten a lot of sugar. We've eaten a lot of starch. We don't take probiotics. We don't eat prebiotics. A lot of people don't take chia seed or flaxseed or hemp hearts or psyllium fiber as a part of their diet. Nobody hits their fiber targets. So when people talk about taking prebiotics, one of the biggest reasons it's a problem is your fiber target for the day is supposed to be somewhere between 25 and 50 grams. All right? So how many grams of fiber is in a serving of vegetables? Half cup cooked serving of vegetables.
5.
2. So all you gotta do is eat 25 servings of vegetables a day, and you're gonna get your fiber target. If you eat a legume, how much is a legume? What's the legume target? How much do you get if you eat beans or legumes? It's 8 grams of fiber. Okay?
A cup?
That's a half a cup of beans. So the point being is, so how did we get here? People eat too much, they eat too often, they eat the wrong foods, they eat too fast, right? If you don't chew your food, you can't digest it. And I watch it all the time. I mean, I sit around and watch people, and you know, that's what you do, right? Just watch what's going on and play against it. And so, you know, I mean, I still remember watching a kid fold a piece of pizza in half. Took a bite. This is at 7 a.m., by the way. Took a bite, and I literally saw the point of the pizza going down and moving his atoms out. Well, you went, and finished it with a Pepsi to get it down because it got stuck.
Breakfast of champions.
I'm just sitting there going, wow, man, crazy. Digestive problems like irritable bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, colitis, big increases. Sleep and mood disturbances go up when your microflora is disrupted. There's a nervous system between your gut and your brain. You guys are familiar with that, called the enteric nervous system. And if the microflora are not present and you're throwing out inflammatory compounds, you literally are sending a signal right to your brain, and you're excitatory. So people that have food allergies or intolerances many times will say, I have trouble sleeping. They go and take what? A sleeping med. They'll take an antihistamine, which is like if you go and get Nitol, that's an antihistamine. They're making too much histamine because of all their allergies, and that goes to the brain. So they take that, and if they get knocked out from an antihistamine, that means they probably got a pretty bad microflora. Increased time to recovery after exercise, joint and connective tissue pain. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, when I straighten out their diet, put them on probiotics, all their joint pain goes away. Oh, you know. Memory and cognitive decline, absolutely correlated to you know, dysbiosis or unfriendly flora. Sex hormone issues. When you do not have friendly flora, what happens? If you're a woman and you make estrogen, estrogen's supposed to go through the liver and be broken up, and you package it. And you package it either down a friendly pathway or an unfriendly pathway. So the first step is you take estrogen and you stick a detoxifying handle on it it goes through something called glucuronidase, glucuronide. And so you put a glucuronide compound on there and you carry the estrogen out of your body, and now you don't become estrogen dominant, and that means you're not going to increase your risk of breast cancer. When women eat either a high sugar and or high fat diet, and many people that do ketogenic 2 days and they end up carving out their third day. So they're kind of ketogenic. They don't stick to being really ketogenic. So it's pretty common for people to have low fiber, high saturated fat, and higher sugar diet. What that does is when the microbiome shifts, you make an enzyme that pulls the handle off the estrogen and allows it to circulate and store in your body as a woman and increase your breast cancer risk. So why are probiotics important for women? Maintaining the microflora means you're packaging estrogen more effectively, especially in light of adequate fiber. So those two things need to happen. Thyroid imbalances occur due to microbiome disturbances. Nobody wants to, I can tell you that in 37 years of being in practice now, so I've been seeing patients 37 years in integrative care, evaluating people. I never saw autoimmune thyroiditis 37 years ago. It was so rare to see somebody's immune system attacking a thyroid gland. Now, about 1 out of 5 people that have a thyroid disturbance, their immune system is attacking it. Autoimmune thyroiditis is what that's called. And it used to never happen. Food cravings, gut flora is bad, you're gonna crave. And I know a lot of people have that issue. Immune problems, cardiovascular issues, chronic inflammation, non-alcoholic fatty liver, actually associated with a lack of diversity and poor microbiome and then weight gain. We're gonna go through the all the strains here in a second, but I think it's important. I hope what I'm painting for you is this is more than just about am I gonna poop good and have gas or not, right? Because everybody's already saying that at your shelf. Well, you're just gonna say, oh, you'll poop a little better, you'll have a little less gas. You wanna be informed about how important the microflora is to people and their global health, right? And obviously you're gonna detail the fact that people have less gas, they have better bowel movements, their immune system's better, their allergic IgE response is improved, all the things you can detail. And the studies I'm gonna go through, you wanna hit that, but you just, you wanna go beyond so that you can say, look, yeah, we're relaunching this and rebranding it because we're really going to tell people the story of our science-based probiotics and why they're so important for everyone. So, probiotics in general, right? What all do they do? Obviously, generating vitamins and minerals. I mean, you literally process folate, generate more folate, more thiamine, more B12 because of microflora. They're anti-pathogenic. They keep the bad bugs. They keep the graffiti sprayers off of the gut, right? So it keeps the commensal pathogens under check. The microbiome gets improved. Obviously, diarrhea, constipation, we talked about this, and of course supports the gut and the immune system. And they should be distributed through the GI tract. They should produce organic acids. It's great if they're stable at room temperature because that means that there's more flexibility for the consumer to be able to use them. And obviously you guys know that story inside and out of what moisture and refrigeration can do to create activation of the bacteria and deterioration of the counts. So you get that. Obviously it should be safe. It should be able to, you should know that, oh, I take it, it survives digestion, and it duplicates, right?
Hey Jim, going back to that last slide, when you talked about the
Go ahead. I just want to get to it.
What was that? Yeah, there was a thought that I had when you talk about stable at room temperature. I can't remember what I was going to ask you. I'll bring it up. It was really good too.
I can't wait till your next good thought comes out. Let me wait. Oh, time for lunch. Just interrupt me when you remember it.
Yeah.
It's okay, especially if it's really important and good. Seriously.
Good.
Yeah, just seriously, just stop me and go, I got it.
That was awesome, Dave.
Yeah. Now I can't remember where I was. I mean, holy crap, what was I talking about?
Yeah.
Go back to slide 1.
Oh yeah, here it is.
You got it.
It was
back.
talking about the moisture issue. We're talking about going in and out of refrigerators because I brought that up before when you're doing seminars on Chitinopus, and I had some people say, okay, well that sounds plausible. Then the other people came back with an objection. They said those desiccate pillows take care of that.
No, desiccants, once the bottle's open, desiccants
Supposed
no
to
longer
take
work.
that
Yeah, it does not. That's
They no longer
inaccurate.
work. Once
Right.
the bottle's open.
Yeah, so
That's
that
right.
repeated opening and
It's real simple. Once the bottle's open, and
So
you're
just take that thing and throw it out.
You're
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's not it. No, they're wrong.
Okay.
You can just say that too. No, they're wrong.
They're wrong.
I'm right. They're wrong. By
There's a
our
scientific
probiotics.
study that proves that too.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, no, the desiccant doesn't do that because the problem is it's a repeated process and you're entering ambient temperature into the air. So when it's refrigerated, It'll take into account a closed bottle system, but once it opens up, it can't account for that.
Right.
In a closed system, you can say that. Once it opens up, it is no longer a closed system, and you cannot count on that desiccant doing that. And you actually have the studies that show that it doesn't. So you're good there.
Okay.
All right. And look, for me, I got guys. I've used refrigerated probiotics. I've used room temperature probiotics. You know what the biggest drawback, even if a refrigerated probiotic is?
Compliance.
100%. Number one, by far. I can't tell you what, back when I used to only use refrigerated probiotics back in like the mid 80s. Number one thing is, I keep forgetting to do that, it's in the fridge. Well, hey, wow, glad I'm helping you. So, Friendly Trio. Let's just start now and talk about the species, and I want to just kind of pull out or tease out what the benefit is of each of the species. I think, does that broaden your horizon on the value of why probiotics are so core to your mission? Because look, if I remember, last year it was about being Wakanaga healthy.
Yes.
It was about developing a corporate culture of wellness and health that encompasses the whole person. And I honestly didn't forget about it.
No.
And that's kind of how I wanted to present this, because you want to realize you're having global impact on people when they buy your probiotic. Global impact on their health. That's super important. At least for me, it's a thing that I try to always think about. So obviously, Lactobacillus caseri KS13, human origin, reported to support body's GI function and human health. Look, I also going to say something. Look, there are plant-based probiotics that have value. I'm telling you right now. You can drink sauerkraut juice and you'll get some value due to the fermentation. Having human strains as the core of your offering is important, but it's okay to say, yeah, we've got a couple that are extracted from plant or from dairy if they have the evidence behind them that in humans they made a difference, right? So just don't, we gotta step back just a little bit. But once again, human flora, the Bifidobacterium G91. I love this because of the how much this affects the allergic component or the IgE titers within people's tissues, and we're going to get to that. And then the Bifidobacterium longum MM2, normalized bowel movements. That's important. So let's go through studies and our strains and what we're doing. So 2017 study, really nice. I mean, in 173 people with seasonal allergies. When you look at the Friendly Trio at 1.5 billion CFUs per cap in 2 caps per day, hence 3 billion as the dose on the box. I thought that was a great move by Janice and Michael to really go, let's distill this down and give an accurate picture. This is the dose you need to fit the clinical study. It's 2 capsules as your serving size. It's great. So when you look at quality of life questionnaire, great scoring from it, showed a statistical improvement on pollen versus placebo. And here's the biggest one, serum IgE and T regular cells from baseline. So basically what it is that we get an improvement in allergic response. 2015 study on 34 people 65 to 80 years old, 2 capsules daily for 3 weeks. Once again, you're at that clinical dose. Probiotic group, higher levels of interleukin 10 isolated in white blood cells. Why is interleukin 10 important? Interleukin 10 means that you're pulling the immune system back out of an allergic dominant state. That there's a family of cytokines that were really kicking butt, that were getting upregulated during that allergic response, and when IL-10 gets dropped in, you're making the immune system response less immunologically driven towards allergy, right? So you're calming down the allergic response. So I'm sure all of you you probably have tattoos of IL-10 on your arms right now. You love it so much, but it's pretty important. And then of course the other one, which I think is important, is this whole piece of the Facilius and the Prazinski. The reason this is so important is the butyrate production. So why is it important that you make butyrate? Because butyrate is what feeds your colonocytes. So colonocytes are the one layer epithelial cell that lines the layer of your intestine. You know, think about that. This is why Kyolic and why Chiodophilus are so important, guys. You have one layer of cells that protect the inner linings of your body from your bloodstream. You have one layer of cells that protect, that make up the inner lining of your artery. One cell layer thick. When you don't have integrity of those, and also the blood-brain barrier actually, they're all three one cell layer thick. When you don't have integrity of those three barriers, people get sick. Being able to provide the food, so when I take Chiodophilus and I upregulate butyrate, it means I'm giving the food that I need to make those colonocytes or epithelial cells fatten up. Because what happens is under inflammation, they get beat up and they shrink. And when they shrink, you get gaps in the cells, and now you start becoming more allergic, not just to food. You gotta realize when you inhale pollen, where does some of that go? You're regulating some of that immunologic drive, actually most of it, from what's called your antigen presenting cells that circulate around in your gut. All right? So just realize the pretty interesting. I mean, you've got some really great studies on your probiotics that say, hey, guess what? Ours actually work. And I don't think anybody is talking about this. So if you want to talk about going in and sounding really smart, hey, you know what? We've actually proven that our probiotics make butyrate. They're selling butyrate now. They're selling ghee. Well, why not just take a probiotic that makes butyrate and repairs your gut? Right? Easy, I think, easy benefit. And then, of course, improves symptoms over placebo. And this was that older adult study. So keep in mind, 65 to 80 years old. If you look at this, I had to change these. The colors didn't go right, so I had to cut over that. So if you look at this, percent changes in IL-10, if you look, pretty significant shift. You don't think of like from 0.4 to 1.7 being that significant.
It's fourfold.
But it's a fourfold change, and the other thing is slight increases in interleukins have a dramatic effect on how your immune system behaves. So a fourfold change in this is meaningful because it's really turning off your allergic response. Over here, the amount of lactic acid forming bacteria here, this is super important because, when you make L positive lactic acid, that creates, so there's D negative lactic acid, and then there's L positive lactic acid. When you make L positive lactic acid, which is the organic acids that was in that slide of what your probiotics do, L positive lactic acid is what creates the environment to make beneficial flora first be able to adhere, duplicate, and then flourish. Pretty powerful. So quick review, we're going to run through all these. Any questions on anything I just said before we just kind of go through the rest of the probiotics? Questions about maybe the where the information might apply, or crap, Jim, you lost me.
So on your previous slide, the IL-10 concentration went up, right? And so it was from the serum or plasma? Is it?
I think that was serum.
It's a serum.
Yeah, it was serum. So, so before we just get into these, just quick, think about probiotics for everybody, not just gut health. Think about letting your store owners, when you're going into corporate buyers, you can do all kinds of promotional stuff about, God, educate the store owner on, hey, you realize all these different drug categories, how many people are coming into your store on these drugs? They should be taking Chiodophilus. Which Chiodophilus? The one that's appropriate for either their age or their specific need state, which you guys are getting educated on over the next couple days. Okay.